Well, we love the glitz and glam of Hollywood, right? But sometimes reality can cast a shadow on the silver screen. Today, we'll delve into the intricate web of celebrity and legal challenges with a focus on Alec Baldwin's journey, exploring the contrast between Hollywood's allure and the complexities of real-life legal battles. We're speaking with the personal injury law firm of Ashton & Price, recognized as one of Sacramento County's most prominent personal injury law firms. Here to help us navigate through the 7 degrees of Alec Baldwin is Craig Fontaine Ashton of Ashton & Price. Hello, Craig.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. This is such an interesting case about Alec Baldwin. So take us through the key developments in Alec Baldwin's legal journey, and especially regarding the upcoming trial and the charges that were initially brought against him.
Right, so he's going to trial on July 10th for involuntary manslaughter. That happened as a result of a shooting on October 21st, 2021, where Honda Hutchings, who was a cinematographer, was shot accidentally, so it wasn't intentional. Nobody's making that claim, by a gun that was held by Alec Baldwin, which had a live bullet in it, unbelievably. So Hannah Gutierrez was just convicted, so she was the armorer, so she's responsible for gun safety.
Right.
And a jury found her guilty of criminal negligence and voluntary manslaughter, and she's facing up to 18 months in prison and then a $5,000 fine, and she gets sentenced on April 15th.
Okay.
So Alec, this is becoming very real for him because one of his key individuals that was responsible for safety got convicted.
Right. Now, I understand there was a special prosecutor and a gun enhancement charge. What was that all about?
Yeah, so they got all worked up and said, Alec Baldwin, let's make an example of him. And they raised the penalty up to 5 years. But what they did is they applied a law that passed after the alleged crime occurred. So it's called ex post facto. You can't pass a law and then apply it retroactively. That's unconstitutional. Then they had a special prosecutor. They were running for office, and there was a constitutional conflict. So that got dismissed. Alex Spiro gets involved. That's the attorney for Elon Musk. And then, because Alec Baldwin went on TV and said, I didn't pull the trigger on this network with George Stephanopoulos, and it turns out they tested it with a mallet, rawhide mallet, and broke the gun, but it turns out they couldn't fire. But because they broke the gun, they dismissed the charges. Then they had the gun basically Humpty Dumpty. They brought it back together again, and then another expert says, guess what? I agree with the FBI that you cannot, without pulling back on that trigger, cause it to fire. Therefore, the only person that was responsible for that gun going off is not a malfunction, but Alec Baldwin.
The person who pulled the trigger.
Right.
So you mentioned it, but let's talk about the recent guilty verdict of Hannah Gutierrez, the armorer who was involved in the shooting. What was the final charge and the sentence she received?
So involuntary manslaughter, same thing as Alec Baldwin, which basically says, look, here's the thing. You didn't do this on purpose, but there's live ammunition on the set. You're using a real gun. This is not a rom-com. You're firing the gun. You're doing, there's shooting practice in between takes. There's drugs, there's alcohol. Alec Baldwin, you're the lead actor, and you're also producer.
Yeah.
You got to know. You can't just say, I didn't know about this. Clearly, we're going to argue that you did, and you owe a duty of responsibility in an ultra-hazardous behavior, which is a gun, to make sure there's not a bullet in it, and don't point it at somebody.
Right.
And because she's the armorer, it was a pretty easy connection to say, you're responsible for gun safety. So there's a live bullet in the gun, and you're guilty of involuntary manslaughter. She's going to be sentenced on the 15th.
The details of this are like a movie within a movie. I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
It is completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody in their right mind would do this in the real world ever.
Right. So tell us about the re-indictment. How does a re-indictment work, and what did a firearms expert say about Alec Baldwin that could affect him? Right.
So they basically just have to stay within the statute of limitations. So they dismissed without prejudice the first charge. Then they got it in front of a grand jury, said, look, okay, we don't want to make this a prosecutorial decision. We'll let a grand jury make an independent charge. They did, based upon new evidence regarding looking at the weapon that was reconfigured after it was damaged by the FBI. And once the FBI's initial assessment was, unless you whack that with a mallet, it won't fire unless you pull on the trigger. We have another expert from Arizona that agrees. We're refiling the charges, and that's going to be the presentation to the jury.
Oh, my. And if things couldn't get worse for Alec Baldwin, shifting gears a little bit in the family, let's touch on the nightclub incident involving Alec Baldwin's niece, where she was arrested for assault and battery at a club in Savannah, Georgia. I can imagine this probably exposes the Baldwin family to more legal drama.
Yeah, there's 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, which is every 7 steps to an actor to Kevin Bacon. Well, any criminal act in Hollywood is attached to Alec Baldwin. Yes. This is Aaliyah Baldwin, so that's the sister-in-law of Justin Bieber, the niece of Alec Baldwin, the daughter of Stephen Baldwin. So you got drunk, punched a bouncer in the genitalia, and threw a feminine hygiene device at the bartender, assault and battery. She's being charged with a felony.
Oh, my.
I know.
It's like if things couldn't get worse for Alec Baldwin. Oh, my.
Yeah,
Oh my.
so assault and battery is the apprehension of harmful or offensive contact. When the feminine hygiene device is coming towards your head, that's assault. When it hits you, that's a battery. It is harmful and offensive, and it's in Georgia, so they don't put up with that type of behavior, I think, in Georgia or anywhere else. And yes, so the niece of Alec Baldwin is being charged with a felony.
Wow.
I see rehab in her future.
Right. And lastly, Michael, the last 30 seconds we have here, how can individuals navigate legal complexities and protect themselves in a world where legal and personal boundaries often intersect?
Well, yeah, the nice thing is if you find like a law firm like ours, we take phone calls about all kinds of issues all the time. So if you have a resource of talking to an attorney, it's a good idea. Don't make the same mistake Alec Baldwin did, is go on national TV and say, I didn't pull the trigger, which then lets you, if you can prove that that gun could not be pulled without a finger on the trigger, you're going to get charged.
Yeah.
And so you should have exercised his Fifth Amendment rights. So use whatever resources you can, and we're a good resource for that. And call Ashton & Price if you have any questions, especially about personal injury.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And you can find out more by going to ashtonandprice.com.